Jackson, you ready?
Phone's in your pocket out now.
Hey, we need to cover that movement.
Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about my setup for Milsim West, the VOLGOGRAD offensive in Loudon, Tennessee. Took place Veterans Day, actually, Veterans Day weekend. Went out there, larped in kit with the boys. We had a great time. I learned a lot about my kit and a lot about Milsim West, and I want to share a little bit of my experience with you guys. So let's dive right in. So for my shirt and pants, obviously NATO's got to wear multicam, so I brought a OCP military issue blouse and some, military trousers. Knee pads are from Amazon. Amazon's kind of sketchy, but it's all right. And these hold up better than those fake combat shirts do. There are some better combat shirt brands out there, but the ones on Amazon, there's a lot of cheap ones. We got this sick patch for completing the event, Task Force Sparrow. I put it where the combat patch goes because I want people to know what we had to go through out there. Freezing in the rain with no sleeping pad, and some of the guys didn't even have jackets out there. They were just wearing ponchos and blouses. One guy was so cold out there, he put his face into pine needles and was like rubbing his face because he couldn't cope with the freezing temperatures. He had no jacket. He had thermals, but he barely didn't even wear them. One thing that our platoon leader came up and said to us was, if you are in the patrol base right now and you are comfortable and warm, you need to get a little bit uncomfortable, because when you start marching and fighting, you're going to start overheating. So you want to be a little bit colder than you think, and then when you warm up, you'll be perfect. Okay, so for my rain jacket, I've had this military issue raincoat as well. This goes either over the fleece or just over your uniform. It kind of interfaces with the fleece as well, which is pretty cool. But this came in really helpful as a windbreaker and something to protect you from the rain. So that was really nice. As far as footwear goes, I rock very basic Columbia hiking boots. These are waterproof and they're relatively inexpensive. I got these for $70 a few years ago, and I wore merino wool socks with them, specifically Merino Smart Wool socks. Those kept my feet actually really comfortable. These are waterproof, but they're not really good in cold weather, so my feet were freezing when I wore different kinds of lower quality wool socks. So those Smart Wool, they're about $20 a pair, but the Smart Wool socks are awesome. I highly recommend those because they also wick away moisture from your feet. Now, these are great because you don't get water inside your shoe, but if your feet sweat, that sweat's going to remain inside your boot and they're not going to be very breathable. So obviously bring extra pairs of socks. Bring at least 3 or more pairs of socks, I would say, and change them out regularly. I found myself rotating back to the Smart Wool socks after I had taken them off for a little bit because they were still better quality than the cheaper wool socks that I brought out there as well. So that's a good tip for you. In order to qualify for an armor bonus, you need to rock a plate carrier with real plates weighing at least 5 pounds or fake plates weighing 5 pounds, and a ballistic, either replica or actual ballistic helmet. So I brought this replica Mitch 2000. This is a Lancer Tactical with a Lancer Tactical helmet cover and Vulcan dual pane anti-fog goggles up front. Talking about these goggles real quick, they fogged a ton. When you sweat in these things, even if they're dual pane, yeah, they're fine walking around the PB all day, but when you start sweating in these, they fog a ton. So next time I would most definitely bring anti-fog. I can't stress enough. We all had severe fogging problems. One of the guys out there actually brought anti-fog wipes, and those did help a little bit, but I would definitely bring something for as far as the goggles are concerned. Now for the helmet, it's a very kind of flimsy plastic, I would say, and the shroud on it is also plastic. These arc rails are a cheaper plastic. I didn't use the arc rails. I did use the shroud because I rented night vision at the event, and I used a little bit of, for my GoPro. Granted, my GoPro footage isn't the best, but I did use it, and I know it's highly advised that you do not use a plastic shroud, especially with no bungees or anything like that, for night vision. I went out there, had a J-arm and a Rhino mount, and I used my night vision, and it actually was fine. It stayed in place. I had hit branches, things like that, and it remained inside the shroud. Not ideal, but that's what I had to work with. I did notice, though, because I did not have counterweights, I was constantly trying to adjust the helmet, trying to shift my view back, and next time I'll probably rock a bump helmet so that this was a little bit better, because this wasn't the greatest setup. Next up is the T-Rex Arms AC1 in multicam. So for this, I ran up front I got a 5.56 T-Rex Arms placard. I ran 3 mags up front. I ran another magazine on this shingle here, a UV5R, and I had a B-Tech push-to-talk that I usually had on this thing that I swapped out to my chest rig on the last day because I did something a little bit different I'll talk about. But as far as this plate carrier is concerned, this served me well. I, loaded it up. It is a slick style carrier, so it is not really like for infantry use, but for the game, it served its purpose. I was running Hesco L210s the whole time. They weigh about, I want to say about 5.5 pounds, 5.4 pounds, I believe. And they didn't really fatigue me all that much. When you're wearing the plate carrier for so many hours on end, though, you do get tired. I would occasionally take it off when I was in the patrol base or doing something else, but if I was going to do anything where I thought I might come into contact, I went ahead and threw the plate carrier on. If I was on watch or if I was on a patrol, I would just kind of throw it on and be cool with it. I did notice that early on the shingles, I wasn't getting things all the way down into the shingles. Things would fall out, so you really got to make sure you look and make sure, like for example, the radio, make sure it's all the way seated in. I had to take my radio out a ton because I had both bands, the HQ channel and the squad channel I had keyed up. I was listening to both, but I could only broadcast on one. So I would constantly be taking my radio out to unlock it to then change to HQ frequency or squad frequency. Now the majority of the time I had it on squad frequency because I was communicating to 1-3 Bravo team leader or 1-3 Alpha before he lost my radio. But outside of that, the UV5R actually worked really well out there, and I'm really proud of it.
1-3 Alpha, 1-3 Actual. What's the status of your light machine gun? Over.
Stand by, still loading.
Now I don't have it hooked up right now, but I brought the Onward Research chest rig out there and wore this over the TRX Arms plate carrier. I took the 5.56 placard out and then just adjusted this and wore it over the slick plate carrier. It can be run with or without a slick plate carrier, but I chose to run it with the slick. I have a mag pouch right here as a radio pouch that I use for the UV5R, and then I used a B-Tech push to talk right here. This thing was great. I bought an extension for the antenna that would run the antenna onto my back, but that wire was not, something was wrong with it. It was like cheap Chinesium because it would not let me broadcast, so I had to run the antenna inside the radio the whole time. I didn't have a better setup. Next time I would have something a little bit better. But as far as the B-Tech goes, it's great. It also has a, I believe it's a 3mm audio jack where you can run a headset to the push to talk and plug it into either a standalone headset or if you have Peltors or something like that. It runs 8 mags up front, and I actually still have one of the smoke grenades that one of the guys gave me. So I'll use that for next time. Maybe the Sochi Strike, I'm not sure. Okay, so for my belt, I rocked a Condor belt out there. I know it's cheap airsoft gear, but what are you gonna do? I brought some Vickers Blue Force gear mag pouches. I ran an AR mag, Glock mag, and a BB speed loader in here. I ended up losing the speed loader, so probably not that great. Mechanics gloves, a Glock 17 Gen 3. My brother actually got a kill with this because his batteries froze out there, and he needed the Glock when we were getting our PB attack, so he asked for the Glock, grabbed it, threw it to him like Captain Price. He bagged a Russian with it, so I'm pretty happy about that. Running an IFAK up here. I'm not medically trained. I just run a very basic first aid kit in there. Dump pouch, pretty simple little belt setup. Before I went out there, I was like, I don't think I need a belt, but after actually running a belt out there, I thought it was really helpful. Just because it was so nice to be able to have like your pistol on you with a dump pouch. That extra ammo as well was cool. So yeah, basic belt setup. Now I brought this assault pack out there. I did not need it. I used this for storing a little bit of snacks and a little bit of water, but I could have brought that in my ruck instead. I thought I was going to be bringing an assault pack out in the field with me on patrols, but I simply did not need it. Maybe if I had a smaller bag, I would have rocked it, but for me, I feel like this was just a little too big, and especially on the first night, it was kind of getting in the way of things, and I do regret buying this. Even though I did store a little extra stuff in here, I would rather just keep things in my ruck and maybe get a smaller assault pack next time. For my ruck, I brought out this Walmart Ozark, like $30 ruck. It was actually not that bad. Once I got everything sorted out in it and I packed it, I was able to keep a lot of my stuff, and I'm actually really happy with it as a cheap alternative. But it has a little bit of a frame inside of it, and it's got some little basic hip support. Originally, my idea was to bring a sea bag out there, but that was a terrible idea, and I didn't do that, so I ended up just going with this, and it was a little bit better. Okay, my sleeping bag was another Walmart special. This was just a little bit too big. Next time, I would bring a smaller sleeping bag, and I would pack a sleeping pad. I didn't have a sleeping pad out there, and I wish I did, because the ground was cold, and even for watch, you could dig a fighting hole, and you could lay your sleeping pad lay on that and be laying down for hours. If you guys out there did that. Went to Harbor Freight and bought 2 tarps, used that to lay down on the ground, and then I put my sleeping bag over that and laid on it. I was pretty cold, but I also used hand warmers, popped those, and put them near my feet in the sleeping bag, and it kept me pretty warm. For food, I brought an MRE and some Mountain House meals out there. I think MREs are great. I'm not disgruntled by them because I didn't have to eat them in the military in the field. So these are still really enjoyable for me. You can pop them open and you don't know what you're going to get. You could get an oatmeal cookie or jalapeno cheese spread, you know. Your options are limitless. But so MREs are great.
But sleep when it's time to go to sleep. I could eat a bug. If y'all let me go to, if we were allowed to go to sleep for the normal amount of time, I could eat a bug. You could, I could have a plate full.
Some people say they bring bagels out there, and bagels is like the new meta. Maybe I'll give that a shot next time, but I don't know. We'll see.
Seems too dry.
Speaking of dry, I got these dry bags to keep my clothes dry, and my ruck was pretty waterproof, but I wanted that extra layer of security. These are pretty cheap at Walmart. I threw some underwear, socks, things like that in these, rolled them up, and they're fine. As far as other snacks, I kept some stuff in my admin pouch here. I got Kind bars, I got some fruit, some freeze-dried fruit at Dollar General for $1, all kinds of little snacks. Inside here I brought dude wipes, a multi-tool, pocket knife, a red lamp, which is really helpful. I got a little Energizer red lamp that you can put, it's a headlamp that you can put, you know, on your forehead. I just ran it around my neck and would turn it on occasionally. So what would I bring next time to the event? Well, I'd probably just bring a chest rig, not run the body armor because the extra weight just got tiring after 40 hours. So I would rock a chest rig, a bump helmet, hopefully a real bump helmet, and a better system for my GoPro and night vision, and counterweights as far as that goes. So one thing that I brought out there was Lumi. My mother-in-law actually got this for us, and it was fantastic. It's like a lotion sort of thing that you put under your armpits and various nether regions that sweat. And I'm not a scientist or anything, but the way I understand it is that it like eats the bacteria and prevents it from smelling. So my brother and I used this, and we thought we were going to smell a lot worse than we did after the event, but the Lumi actually kept the odors down, and we were able to go to Waffle House afterwards and have a nice meal. So for my primary, I brought the KWA VM4A1. Now this is a stock gun, but I rocked the EOTech up top Surefire and KWA magazines. Now this gun is actually not a bad gun. They shipped it to me wired to Tamiya instead of Dean's. I ordered a Dean's gun and they sent me Tamiya, so that kind of was annoying, but I digress. This gun stopped feeding out in the field, but I think it was because of dirt. There was a lot of dirt that I think got into the muzzle because I was often putting it muzzle down because it was like, you know, rain this way or dirt this way, and I chose dirt, and I think it jammed my gun. Now, there was a guy out there who had PTS magazines. He let me use those, and they cleared the jam. When I got back home on Monday, I tested the KWA magazines again, and they were working just fine, so I'm not sure what was causing that. A little bit of an airsoft gun noob. Airsoft guns are way harder to work on than real firearms. They're like a electronic toy, really, so, you know, they're goofy, but, you know, this gun, once it was working, everything like that, it was fine. I bagged a few Russians on the first night with it, so pretty happy with that. And it was clocking in right at 355 FPS with 0.25 gram BBs, so I ran a very basic SOP mod setup because I like this. I may in the future put a rail on it, but, you know, that remains to be seen. So thermals are something that I highly recommend for guys that are coming out. I should have changed into mine, but I didn't simply because I just didn't want to change out of my uniform. I was cold. I was like, you know, I can deal with it, and I ended up just dealing with it. But so if you've never been to an event, I wasn't really sure how these things went. I'll kind of break down how the process goes. You're going to show up, and you'll find parking. You're going to be asked to bring the items out of your ruck that are red line items, and they're pretty much only going to want to see those red line items, and you don't even have to lay the whole thing out onto a tarp. I thought you did, but you don't really have to do it. Our cadre came over to us and said, hey, do you have this item, that item, this? And we simply just pulled it out of our rucks, showed it to him, and he was fine with it. If you're a squad leader or a team leader, there are some red line items like GPSs, compasses, things like that. If you have a phone, that will suffice as a timekeeping device, as a ITAC, as a GPS, all of the above. We have this program, this app called ITAC or ATAC if you're on Android, and you can use that as a kind of like an in real life mini map. The whole team can use it and ping different enemy areas and intel, so it's actually a really cool app. Once everybody gets checked in, you'll chrono your gun, you'll meet with your team, and you will have a big brief. Josh will come out and he will do the safety brief, tell you to have fun and not be a turbo virgin, which is hard for some people. You're all with the boys, and then you step off. And the mission pretty much started immediately. We went out, we encountered the Russians, our squad came under fire. We killed some of them, they killed more of us. But it was great. Then we set up camp for the night. We set the patrol base up. We chilled out for a little bit. And in the morning, we went on patrols all day, tried to find the enemy patrol base. We ate, chilled around the camp a lot, and did little missions. I do wish that the Volgograd offensive, I'm not sure if all Milsim West events like this, but it seemed like it was just camp versus camp. And you send a patrol out to go find them, and you send a patrol out to go attack, and you just do little strikes all day. And there was no like objectives it felt like to fight over. There was no, we need to capture this whole area. I didn't get any of that. There was no objectives. It just felt like what I just described. Maybe other events are different. Maybe the weather was stopping people from doing that. At one point, we ended up digging these entrenchment areas, these fighting positions all over the place. And like I said, laid sleeping pads down, laid in them, waited for the Russians and for an assault that basically never came. I was actually on watch one night and approached by my platoon leader and the platoon sergeant. And they came up to me and they asked me if I wanted to go on a night vision raid because I had a PBS-14. So I said, absolutely, I'll go on a raid. They said, wake up at 12:45, meet us on the road at 1 a.m. I was like, awesome, let's do this. I wake up at 12:45, get dressed. You know, I bring the chest rig. I'm like, I'm in the zone. Like, I'm gonna go and do this. We're gonna see Blue Jean Operator and we're gonna like squat on him and like take a picture. It didn't happen because it got so cold that I went out, I got my night vision on, everything. I was in the road trying to see the cadre, and he was like, I went out to a campfire because I saw some guys had a bonfire going, so I walked over there and I see cadre chilling, you know, and just his normal clothes without his gear on, and I'm like, what's up with the raid, man? Like, are we going out? And he was like, no, I got canceled. And I'm like, why? Like, it's perfect. We can strike right now. And they canceled it. I think it was because it was too cold and because Russians had been quitting so much that they didn't want to make even more of them quit, because I firmly believe that if we raided them and we destroyed their forces, that one, because we stole their medic water, they wouldn't have been able to revive, so the game would have been over right there. And two, people would have just started quitting left and right, and we would have had no Sunday assault. That's why I think they canceled it. The next day, we met with the CO, and he gave us a brief on the final assault on the hill, the Russian patrol base, and we, you know, it was a company-size assault. We marched off, you know, we stormed the hill, and at that point, every Russian that was killed was permadeath. We assaulted the hill and decimated the Russian forces to 0. I know there's no winners or losers technically at Milsim West, but if we're going to count it, this was a NATO dub. So, you know, it was pretty cool. We met on the hill at the end. We got some feedback from Josh. The cadres, they introduced themselves, and it was a great time. So we got our patches there, and it was awesome. So this was my first time at the event, and I was a squad leader. So initially I was like, oh, this is my first event. It's kind of intimidating, but I did my very best that I could. And I hope I did as good as I could. You know, the dudes that I went with were like, oh, you know, you did pretty well. So I'm happy with that experience. I really wanted to be a leadership position just because I wanted to run a radio and I wanted to hang out with the boys and whatnot. But we all had a great time, and there was no turbo virginity really happening outside of the whole LARP. But it was cool. It was a cool experience. If you like LARPing and guns, airsoft, modern warfare, whatever, please like this video. Go out there and airsoft. It's a lot of fun. It's the stigma for it being for losers is going away, I think, or more people are becoming losers. I'm not sure which one it is, but it really is a lot of fun, and just chilling with the boys out there, it's a good time.